So, welcome to this live masterclass. I'm Jess Lipman, Unified Mindfulness Certified Trainer and Coach, and Mindful Business Coach. I'm so excited for this masterclass called Ready to Launch. This actually really became a vital topic that came in my view in the last few weeks in 2024 and even preceding it, as I've been working with a number of different clients who are preparing for their own program launches. And I've noticed that there's sometimes a huge barrier or roadblock that gets in the way of some of the essential things that we might intellectually understand or know about how to effectively run a launch in our business, whether it's recurring or having twice a year big launches. And then there's this block that comes up, and maybe it's mindset, maybe it's energetic, maybe it's emotional regulation related. It's also potentially strategy related. And I started to really see that unfolding, all of those different elements of a launch. I was seeing some of the barriers emerging for my clients. And what ends up happening is when those barriers go unchecked, they can perpetuate in our businesses over and over and over. We could run the same kind of launch unsuccessfully, get more and more defeated, and even pivot to something else completely when really we might have just needed some subtle tweaks and optimizations to really help us stay the course with what we were setting out to do. The other thing I see oftentimes is if those blocks go unchecked, we can also really get into our own protective modes, the things like fight, flight, freeze that can stop us from approaching something that might represent a growth edge. And that's mostly what I see with many people, especially starting out in client centered services, whether it's in B2B or B2C space, that there could be this wall that comes up that stops us from launching. So I see people go through all the effort of creating a great program offer and getting the whole communication strategy underway. And then when it comes time to actually deploy the launch and start it, it's like approaching a roller coaster and just deciding I'm not going to opt in for this ride. And that can ultimately take us away from the impact we're meant to be making. And mindfulness teaches us something really beautiful when we practice mindfulness is uh, you might notice as you practice mindfulness that there's this decrease or this lowering of the volume of the ego. That's one way to put it. And these parts that activate that really try to protect us from getting hurt or rejection or some kind of negative outcome that they're anticipating, they will put up whatever they can to stop us from doing something, even if we have the plan in place. And this is why I'm so passionate about a holistic approach to business, because the strategy is not enough. The number of emails, the types of emails, it's not always enough. There's oftentimes other elements that we can really infuse into our launch approach and our business at a greater scale when we zoom out. The whole business, we get to manage our mindset on a regular basis. We get to point our arrow of purpose toward what we really care about and what matters most. And when the mind takes us on this journey into other things that are it starts to fixate on, that are blocks, this is when we can redirect and use our resources, our marketing strategy, our mindset strategy, our heart management strategy, our energy strategies. We bring them all together to proactively help us get through it so we can share our message and our work more widely with people. Because if you can share it effectively, then people will enroll in it. And the the main thing we want to do as service providers is provide our service and offer these resources and tools that we know are really effective for people. And so we need people in the room for that, whatever room, figuratively speaking, that is, whether you're doing private coaching, live group programs, self-paced online courses, workshops, immersions, retreats, you name it. We need to be able to enroll people skillfully. So that's the endeavor I'm here to support you with. With that, let us get started. All right. Try that one more time. Okay. So today's masterclass is called Ready to Launch, a resistance proof approach to three times your expression enrollment and potent impact in 2024. So I'll just briefly share about my background so that we're all on the same page. I have over 13 years working in the personal development, impact, and marketing space. And I've worked in an organization I co-founded called Being Resilient, where we do mindfulness organizational coaching in creative agencies. I'm editor in chief of personalbrand.com, where I share many different marketing and product strategies to help personal brands and client centered service providers. And I also have a professional experience working in house for some of the best in the personal development industry, including Brendan Burchard, founder of High Performance Institute, Jim Quick, who's founder of Quick Learning. And then I've also gotten the opportunity to work with companies like Oprah Winfrey Network, One Commune, Tony Horton, Wyden and Kennedy, Larry King, Lifestyle Perfected, Growth.com, and more. And I consider myself a full stack marketer, meaning I have a robust experience in content marketing and direct response marketing, from email campaigns to social media strategy, managing marketing and content teams, working interdepartmentally with customer service and all the different departments that comprise a personal development business. And website building, you name it, I've done it. And so I'm really grateful now to bring that industry insight and those strategies that really work into the hands of client centered service providers who are just starting out, all the way to those of you who are at a place of scaling your impact beyond the certain revenue or impact level you currently are. So there's this modularity to the kind of work I do with people, and the way we apply strategies depends on where you are in your business. So I do invite you, as we go through those launch strategies today. These might feel a bit high level, and also you might notice some elements that really apply to you and maybe other elements that do not. So I invite you to look at where you are in your own business as you go through today's masterclass, and really discern what questions you might have or what opportunities might start to unlock as we go through the Ready to Launch curriculum today. So today's agenda, we'll go through launch essentials. This is particularly the marketing side of things, and also a holistic view beyond the marketing principles. And then we'll talk about receivership and what I mean by that. I see this as a really essential part of running a great launch, and really at a holistic level, running a really balanced healing arts and mindfulness business. And we'll actually practice real time together. And then we'll have some space for spot coaching, sharing, and integration. So you're welcome to ask any questions you have about your own launch coming up, or anything else related to digital marketing and client centered services. So, what's the foundation of the launch? I find that this is actually quite important. And I invite you in this moment to just think about what is motivating this launch. What is that dream outcome that really matters to you beyond the launch? It's not just about the launch. What does the launch provide for you? What does it facilitate in your whole life, in your business, for your lifestyle? Anchor into what your particular vision is. So I invite you to take a moment here right now to just think about, why is this launch so important? What's at the root of this launch? What does it help create? And I'll share some common visions that I see, that I personally experience myself in my own business. And so one that is extremely common, and maybe the most important one, is to be of service. We want to launch a program effectively so that we can be of higher service to as many people as we can. And so this is about supporting other people. This is a really great focal point to remember because we can lose this when we are anxious or stressed out, especially during the launch and when you're in the weeds of your marketing. Being of service sometimes becomes completely eclipsed. So I want to list this as number one because it is the most important thing. It is the reason why we endeavor to even embark on marketing in the first place. Many of us here are not native marketers. We're not, some of us might not even really be interested in marketing. We do it because it's a function to help us be of higher service, to actually reach more people. And so we want to keep this top of mind. Number two is stability. So many people are launching a program and also want to have consistent high earning launches because they really are seeking security and stability at a root level. And that could be energetically, feeling balanced, sturdy. Maybe your root chakra feels really secure when you have a launch that feels easeful, that feels clear, that has a direction, it has a strategy in place. You know that all the components are effective and already proven. Other people are already using it. That can create an energetic stability and security. Financial security. This one is probably most obvious, but we want to have financial stability in our business because those funds actually help us continue to be of service. If we go out of business because we can't make our livelihood doing this business, then we actually can't really be of service to as many people as we want to be. So there is a necessity to really having financial stability, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're making millions of dollars. Nothing wrong with that as a goal, but rather the financial stability is for you to define and decide what that means. And also, it's a very valid anchor point in this vision. We want financial stability so that we can keep doing what we do and supporting people on a continuous basis for the long term. And then mental and relational stability, feeling at ease, feeling in that state of trust, that state of courage, that confidence, having resilience mentally, and also with the people in your life. You want to be able to feel at ease and connected with people in your life. So when we're stressed out or anxious or overwhelmed, this does impact our relationships with people in our lives, but also energetically, this comes through to our prospective clients. So we really want to cultivate stability proactively for our launch. And the last thing is to be authentic. Many of us who do this work are actually doing it because we authentically love it. Some of us have left careers doing something that just didn't really feel meaningful anymore. Maybe it never felt meaningful. And this endeavor as a client centered service provider, whether you do mindfulness training or coaching, or you're a healing arts practitioner, you're a life coach, you do some kind of mindful entrepreneurship of some kind that really excites you, this is about the pursuit of that authentic exploration. And this can drive so much of what we're doing in the business that we're running. And so I want to name that because this is probably one of the most important ones to me because this is something that my own coaching business has provided me, is this capacity to actually uncover my own authentic self and my own vision. To even have vision, it requires feeling stable and secure to even imagine or dream up something that you really want. And so this is an opportunity to think about, how does your own business, how does your client centered services provide you the space to discover your authentic self and express it. And so, marketing and content marketing is a beautiful way to explore your authenticity and your expression. And this is one of the things that actually really trips up a lot of people around marketing, is that they feel like they have to fit themselves into a strategy that just doesn't feel authentic. And so, my goal is to provide a blueprint of ways to go about your marketing and your communication, but to really bring you, your authentic self, into your communication, because this is an opportunity to heal that. This is an opportunity to be yourself and to also connect with people who are vibrating toward that authentic you. And it could be probably one of the most gratifying things we can do in our business. And so this is an opportunity to do that. Now let's look at some of the common blocks that come up around launching. There's fight, flight, freeze. Oftentimes, these can be some of the surface symptoms that we notice. Like maybe when it comes time to actually launch, you have everything ready to go, you have the strategy in place, and then you freeze up. You just don't take any action and you procrastinate or avoid it or go into other tasks to stay busy and you keep putting off the launch. So, that's just an example of how that might show up in your body mind. The other one could be anxiety over outcomes, just really fixating on how is the launch going to go and getting anxious about the potential of how it will go, not how it actually is going, but the future of how it might go. This is enough to cultivate anxiety, and then now anxiety is the mind state that you're taking your launch through. And so this is something we want to address, and we'll go through how to do that today. Fear of rejection comes up. That's at a very root level. Sometimes we might just be afraid, like maybe people won't sign up at the rate that we're hoping for, or maybe the people we thought might sign up for this program actually don't. And so it's not that they're rejecting you. There's tons of conditions and variables in place, especially when you consider marketing, that could impact someone's decision to purchase or join a program. But at a human level, we might just feel rejected. So we want to really inquire, do I have this fear of rejection? Have I felt rejected in the past? Am I projecting that onto my launch right now? Lack of strategy can come up where you don't have the right strategy or you're missing some really key components. A lot of this is about kind of combining effective elements together. And when you don't have certain elements that can really move the needle, you might just notice that in your launch efforts and the outcomes that you see. So as we go through strategy today, I invite you to look at, have I tried all these things already? Am I missing some of these things in my past launches? And if you're new to launching and this might be your first launch, then you have this palette of options to really choose from and understand why they work. And so it's about the ingredients coming together and being able to iterate and optimize. Another common launch block that I see, especially with creative people, is relying exclusively on spontaneity. And this one pairs with strategy. So I find strategy is so important during a launch. So when you don't have one or you don't follow the one that you have and you operate more spontaneously, you might also be operating in a way that is guided by your emotions, which can come up and down. They're ever changing, they're evolving. And so if that is your compass, then I would be very mindful about that and bring some awareness to the compass that is actually driving your launch. And so we want to decide what our compass is and anticipate that emotions are going to arise during our launch, but are we going to allow our emotions to guide the launch? This is a question I invite you to ask yourself, and I invite you to, instead of letting the emotions guide the launch, to uh, tune into and attune to those emotions when they come up, but really to stay the course with your strategy. And the last one that can come up is not focusing on service. This one gets eclipsed. And so when we lose sight of why we really are doing what we're doing, this one can actually be a really easy fix for any launch, any business efforts. We want to remember who we're serving. We want to remember why we're doing this, the lives that we're changing. We want to imagine those lives changing. We want to imagine people receiving what we have to offer gratefully and impactfully. And so this is actually a launch strategy. When we lose this, we get stuck in all the details, all the emails we have to send, the social media posts, the sales page we have to build. All of that stuff can feel overwhelming when we don't have the root purpose as our foundation with all those efforts. So if we lose sight of why we're doing this, or we are focusing on other things like vanity or seeking validation or self-worth, I'm only worthy if this launch goes well, then that's really setting yourself up for pain and suffering essentially. So we want to keep our focal point on course throughout this, and we want to look at how much is our focus on being of service really centered in our launch efforts and in our program, because it's not just something that lives in your service delivery. Your sense of purpose and your commitment to being of service, I would recommend it needs to be a part of every element of your business, every element of your day. Why am I doing what I do today? Why am I posting on social media today? Why am I doing this email? Why am I sending out this email to my list? I am being of service today. And so that mindset alone can really help create the stability and balance and momentum that can get lost when we fixate on other things. All right. Let's now dive into launch essentials. So, this list represents, at a very basic level, what I see as the launch essentials. And the reason why it's important to look at this is because one of the challenges that we can face with a launch is feeling like I'm not ready yet to launch. Having the program all ready to go. I don't have it all ready to go, so I can't launch it yet. I haven't created all the modules yet, or I haven't filmed all the videos, or I haven't created all the worksheets, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There might be this fixation on having a complete product. That's what brings us to number one, your MVP, minimum viable product. This is number one. And I say this because you want something that is ready enough, and you may not have everything dialed in for that program yet. You might just have enough dialed in. Maybe there's some unknowns about what kind of resources you need to provide during it, or what some of the topics might be that you offer during that program. You might not necessarily have everything dialed in for how you would run private sessions, things like that. Those don't all have to be ready before you launch a program. You need certain elements. And so that's why I mention this, because this can become one of the top roadblocks to even launching the program. We want to get this program into people's hands and out there. We want the marketing assets out there so we can understand if people want it, and we want to validate the offer. We want to make sure that people actually purchase it or are interested in the solutions that you're offering. So we have to prove concept. And that's why we want to focus on not the complete product, because you may not be able to create the complete product with the data that you have at the start. You need an MVP. And this will take off and relieve some of the perfectionism and the weight of expectations you might have on yourself about what your program needs to include before you get it off the ground. And I really invite you to ease that perfectionism. Let there be some unknowns in the process, because you're going to learn what people really need as you bring that program out into the marketplace and you work with people. You're going to learn a lot about it by working with people. So we need to get something, MVP, off the ground. The other thing that we need is audience. And so I see this mistake pretty often where people will focus on building the offer, and maybe they understand who their ideal client is and they get all the launch materials ready, but there's no audience to launch to. So I want to just drive this home. You do not have to have thousands of followers on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook in order to have a viable audience. You don't even have to have a big email list yet to launch a program. However, you need to have people to launch to. So, whether that is a group of people from your network or people you've worked with in a different capacity in your life, which is a pre existing audience, essentially, you need to have some people who this program is designed for to bring to them. And then that, depending on who your audience is and the nature of your audience, is it an email list? Is it social media? Is it your private network? That will determine how you launch to them. It will determine the communication strategy. So that brings us to the next one, which is I believe you need a solid communication and enrollment strategy. This can include email campaigns, social media, private outreach, text messaging. It just depends on how you communicate with your audience. It might include messaging people in a private Slack group that you manage or your Facebook community that you're already in. It might include posting announcements in other Facebook groups that you're a member of. Maybe you're a part of different communities where your ideal client hangs out. And so you've been hanging out in there for a while. You might post in there. The point is, wherever your client is and where you are established in the digital space, particularly, we're talking digital marketing strategies here. Um, that's where you would design your communication and enrollment strategy. That's how you would determine those different elements. And the next fundamental piece I want to just elevate here is the touch points that correlate with the price point. So, a touch point is essentially kind of what I just mentioned, like an email is a touch point. A DM on Instagram is a touch point. A DM on LinkedIn is a touch point. A social media post is a touch point. An Instagram story is a touch point, etc. A live workshop or masterclass, that's a touch point. So you want to combine enough touch points where you're adding value and you're talking about the program offer depending on the price point. We're going to go into what that might look like just in terms of what does a launch look like depending on the price, if it's 500 below or 500 to 3000 plus. The price point determines the touch points, but ultimately you cannot sell a $3,000 program with one post. You just won't hit the numbers that you're really looking for. You won't enroll the number of people that you can potentially enroll. For something like that, as an example, you might need 45 days of launching and then weeks or months of nurturing before the actual launch. So that just speaks to when I see a price point and I see the number or the level of commitment you're requiring of someone in that program, that determines how many times you need to follow up with them and engage with them. It's more than following up. It's like more like we're engaging people on this impact journey. We're talking about the impact of the program. We're integrating and infusing different messaging points to tell the story of this program and the potential it can have on their lives. So if it's a really affordable program, might be a few less touch points. If it's $49, you might just need one ad that then takes people to a page and they get introduced to that offer and maybe two more reminders. But if it's $1,000, 2,000, 3,000, we're talking about a lot more touch points and more depth of nurturing that's required. I see this mistake sometimes where people will promote something a few times, and I saw someone recently do that. He's like an established mindfulness teacher. It was like a $5,000 program, and he had a partner share about it once in a newsletter. And he was wondering why no one enrolled. And so the answer to that question, why is no one enrolling into that? It's because you didn't have enough touch points to nurture someone and inform them about the value of that $5,000 program and help them enroll into it. So that kind of program needs a completely different launch than having someone share it once through a newsletter. The last piece here is mindset and emotional regulation rituals. I include this in this list of what looks like a lot of marketing strategies because it's so important. None of these strategies within the marketing realm can really take off if you are not emotionally regulated and if your mindset is not clear and intentional and purpose forward. And so, if our mind goes to catastrophic thinking immediately, or the body starts to try to protect you from rejection and stops you from even sending emails or committing to the launch plan that you've laid out. These are things to look at. These are opportunities to start to nurture yourself and bring in mindfulness rituals and other rituals that help you regulate before, during, and after a launch. And you might notice a huge shift there energetically as you want to stay open, you want to stay available, you want to stay courageous, you want to follow the course of the launch and not be taken down the winding roads of the mind. So, we'll go a little deeper into some of these things now. Let's look at MVP. So, to develop your minimum viable product, we're talking about the program itself. You first want to do some market research and find out what your audience's pain points and aspirations actually are. This is how I would recommend that you actually create a program and you create an offer. I wouldn't just create a program based on looking at what other programs are out there and just following a trend. I would actually recommend doing that deeper work with your own ideal client base and your own audience and look at what are the challenges that they're facing? What are the aspirations that they actually hold? What are their goals? Which ones am I equipped to help them with in this particular program? So there's a whole process I take people through to really develop a program offer, but those are the high level points that I would hit in developing that MVP is you first want to just do this market research because it informs what you package and deliver to people. The next piece is create that great offer that aligns with the reality of your prospective clients. So now that you've done that market research, maybe you do some short phone calls with people who are your ideal client, or you go through different Facebook groups where your ideal client hangs out and look at what are the questions they're asking, what are the things they're reporting, what are the conversations including, and start to bring forward some of the canonical messaging and elements that really define what they care about. That's what you then use to think about, well, what modalities do I offer and how can I support them where they are? And that is how you would assemble an offer. And then you conceptualize the program. So part of creating an offer is knowing, well, what is this program? But do not build the whole program before launching. This is a key element I would say about an MVP is the whole thing doesn't have to be ready to go. Part of it might be ready to go. Maybe none of it's built at all before you launch and you want to prove concept before you actually get the program ready. What I mean by building the program is actually building out if you're doing an online course and you're selling a course, maybe you don't build out all the modules and the trainings until you get more data or until you sell it. Really. If you run a successful launch and you're like, all right, 20 people joined, now I'm going to build out the modules. You might have concepts ready to go, but maybe you don't build out and spend all that time building a product yet until you know that you've proven concept. So that's what I mean by building. And there's other elements that can go into developing a program, but this is my recommendation is sell something and prove concept before you put all the time and energy and sometimes money into building a product or program because you don't want to build something that no one wanted in the first place. So, this is about being agile. This is about being scrappy and saying, I have this concept and I'm going to sell this and be ready to deliver on it. If people buy, I'm going to deliver on this and maybe being open to building it as you go. This is a path I've taken in my own business and it's with great success that I've done it this way. I've allowed myself to evolve a program as I'm unfolding it. And the beauty of that is I have actually been able to help my clients with more depth and customization because of that. So I sold my membership this way. I conceptualized, I put together some features, but I had some unknowns. I really didn't know what was completely needed from my client base because I hadn't run this kind of membership before. So I had to take a chance and I sold the membership as it was. And then as I delivered it, I learned about what my clients needed. I also learned about the sequence of learning that was most effective for the modalities and the initiatives that I teach. And so that happened while I was actually delivering the program. And had I built it all beforehand, I would have had so much work to do as I deliver the program and restructure it to meet the needs of my clients. The other beauty of that anecdote is that I also got to add on new features. So for example, I ran a membership and I didn't have office hours when I started out. I just didn't even think about it. But as I started delivering the program, there was like 15 people in the first cohort. I learned that, oh, people have questions and I don't have the time to answer all their questions privately. But what if I did one or two office hours in a group setting every month? That became the most impactful feature of the entire program. And it all came from actually delivering the program. So that's what I want to leave you with on the MVP is that the reason why you want to create something MVP style is so that you have the space to evolve it as needed as you learn about what your clients need, because you will learn things as you go. But the best way to learn it in part is market research, but also while you're delivering it, notice what needs unfold. Notice what might be missing. Notice if you want to be the one to offer it. You don't have to add new features unless you really feel called to. But these are some of the great, beautiful insights that can happen once you get something off the ground. Okay. The next one is create a great offer. So, part of creating a great offer is having one primary delivery vehicle. For example, with private coaching, the delivery vehicle would be the private coaching sessions. That would be the primary one. But then you want to add additional bonuses. So, this is just a suggestion. This is a really effective way to make an offer into something that's actually magnetic and irresistible is add on other supplemental features that really enhance the client's results. So you'd include other things. An example for private coaching could be you have the primary delivery vehicle of one-on-one coaching, but then you add on an online course. Maybe you're a mindfulness teacher and you need to provide some guided meditations that you oftentimes give to all of your clients or you prescribe them in session. Maybe you have a library of the top ones that you teach so that they can use those outside of session. Maybe there's a workbook with reflection prompts. Maybe there's an app that you have in your business that you provide your clients to help them practice and track their progress. There's tons of different bonuses that you can stack together, but ultimately, you create and assemble this irresistible offer that answers the questions that your clients have, addresses the pain points and aspirations that your client have. And then another thing you can add, this is launch specific, is to create a launch special. And so that can either be a price reduction or a feature add on or both. But essentially, a launch typically happens during a window. So there's urgency, maybe there's an end date to the launch, and that's when that launch special would expire. This is obviously optional, but it is something that can help people make a decision to buy this program now versus later and makes it extra special for them. So it's a way to really honor your incoming clients, especially when you have an inaugural program. So this is the ingredient list I would recommend. And next up, I would recommend that you communicate your program offer with love. So this is the communication strategy. And that includes marketing and communication, but having a sales page that's really informative. Sales page components depend on the price point and the depth of service that you're providing and the commitment level for the client. So, longer form sales pages oftentimes are created for more expensive programs or programs with higher commitment from the client, whether it's time, energy, resource. So, we want to have a sales page that really explains this. And then we have our promotional cycle, which is email campaign and social media campaign. So you're sending emails that add value about the program that hit different messaging pillars. Same with social media. The way I oftentimes run a launch is I'll actually have the email and social media campaigns complementary. So that's a great way to repurpose content is That email, just convert it into 1 to 3 social media posts, for example. So you don't have to create completely unique content per platform, but rather use one content piece and distribute it on the different platforms, whether it's your email, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. You'll use that same content piece. So that's a way to reserve energy on a launch, and you're driving people to that sales page. So the email doesn't have to do all the heavy lifting with every single email. You might write a whole email just about one client case study that illustrates the potential or maybe one aspiration that your program addresses. But then the call to action in the email is learn more and join today my upcoming group program, and here's the link to learn more and sign up. So that's where you would take people to the sales page. So you're taking people on this journey from email to sales page, and then from sales page to the enrollment process. The last piece I'll say here is I highly recommend integrating video, whether it's live or pre-recorded. And there's different ways to do that. But depending on the price point, people need to feel your energy. They need to see you demonstrating that you are a steward that can really be supportive for them. So they kind of need to feel you out and like try it on for size and sample the goods, if you will. So that's what video can do really well. It's a great supplement. I wouldn't replace this with any of these. I would actually combine all of these elements together. They are all working together on a great launch. But you could do a video in the form of a live workshop or a self-paced workshop, Instagram live videos, either with yourself or with other people, LinkedIn lives. So two examples there. You can go live with a strategic partner, someone who does something similar to you and has maybe similar audience, and maybe you go live about a specific topic that your coaching program addresses. So you're adding value. Maybe you're teaching some tips or you're sharing insights about your own experience or about client experiences. And then you give the call to action, say, this program's available now. Here's the deadline to join. Here's that special launch feature that you get when you join by this date. So those are all opportunities to share about your work, but also to really add value and give people a taste of what you offer. The other way you could use those too is to include to interview maybe past clients. So if you have clients who are open to having a conversation with you live, that's also a really great way to share about a case study or testimonials from people because they're talking about their experience live with you. So it's kind of like an interview process. You ask them questions like, what was it like before this program? What was your life like? Or what were you struggling with? And let them talk about it and let them talk about what changed. What was their transformation story? What is their life like now after working with you? So I highly recommend that. That really is dependent on the types of clients you work with and who would be interested in that, but it could be an opportunity. Then there's webinars, which are typically self-paced, sometimes live, and or a sales video. So you might do a sales video where you speak direct to camera about the program and hit all the different messaging points to support someone in understanding why this program would be meaningful and impactful for them, and call to action. Everything in here that I'm mentioning requires a call to action. And what that means essentially is after you add value, you want to direct them to the next step, which is example is I'm going to talk to you about trust. I'm going to write a whole email about trust and how you can cultivate more trust using mindfulness. But then if I'm in a program launch, the call to action is we're actually diving into practices to deepen trust in my upcoming program. It's this 8-week program called X, Y, and Z. Here's the link to learn more and sign up. The deadline to join is February 30th. I don't even think that exists. Sorry, February 29th. So that is an example of a call to action. You don't want to just add value during a launch and not provide the call to action. So you always want to create that stepping stone and tell them, here's how you can get involved and go deeper with this topic area. So that's the idea of nurturing, is you're giving something to them to add value to their lives, to give them new insights, to teach them something new. And then you're going to tell them, well, here's how we can go deeper in this topic if you feel called to. And that's where you share the sales page or the enrollment button. Maybe there's a checkout form that you start to send people to instead of the sales page. It just depends on where you are in your launch. But these are the essential elements of a program launch that I would recommend that pair with that MVP and that offer that you've created. Now let's talk about timing. Timing during a launch, it's probably one of the top questions I get. How to time your launch. So, you want to consistently nurture your audience before a launch, usually 30 to 90 days prior to actually promoting a program, so that they already know what you do, why it matters to them, and have even learned from you already. You want them to understand what you do, and you want them to know that this program exists before you start launching it, because this is called seeding. We want to seed it and plant the seeds so that when we're in our launch, the seeds can now sprout. They're not learning about it for the first time necessarily. They know the different things that you offer. And the only thing here though is that now you're starting to really directly talk about it. So you go from nurturing, meaning like maybe you're posting on social media and sending emails about different topics related to your program, different pain points, different aspirations, talking about your modalities, educating people about why your modalities are impactful for these specific goals. You're not selling yet, you're just adding value. And so, this is something that a lot of people don't quite understand about email marketing or even social media is that the launch happens weeks or months before the actual launch really happens. And that's how really effective launches go is you've done enough nurturing where people really understand you, really get what you offer. So by the time you say this thing is for sale, they're way more ready to buy it now than if you were doing no content marketing before that and all of a sudden you just come out the door saying, "Hey, I'm selling this program." You have a lot more heavy lifting to do if you don't do the pre-nurturing process. And so that's the beauty of content marketing is we're staying with people along a journey. We're already adding value. Maybe you have a lead magnet. I call it a welcome mat on your website. That's part of this nurturing. If you're helping people in your welcome mat get some results, they're going to be so much more informed about what you do, about your organizational philosophy, about how you help people, about the results you get people. They're already going to know all that stuff by the time you start talking about the program that you're launching. So, this is all about what you do before a launch matters as much as the launch itself, especially if you don't have any audience yet. This is about audience development. So, getting in front of the right people, becoming an authority figure on the topic, engaging content marketing to create community around that topic. And then the price point impacts the duration of a launch and launch components. So, for example, $500 and under, you might be looking at a 15 to 25-day launch. And that's the actual promotional cycle. It doesn't mean you're doing or sending something every single day, but that might be the window where launch opens and then launch closes. And there's different touch points you integrate within there. Then anything 500 to 3,000 plus might need 30 to 60 days, maybe even longer. It just depends. But that would be what I would recommend is with that kind of price point, you want to give that much time to let people learn about the program, get some value from you, create some energy around the program. And that also impacts the next piece that we'll talk about, which is the enrollment process. So we think about the enrollment process when we think about timing. And we want to lead this process with clarity, support, and enough time. You are leading people in an enrollment process when you're launching. And so, for example, anything over $1,000 may need an alignment call with you or your team, or an application process. Or if you don't do calls, maybe you only text back and forth or you do direct messaging on social media, you might need to create time for that to occur so you can actually talk to people and address questions that they have and have this back and forth. So that factors into a launch schedule. If you're putting a deadline on an enrollment process for a launch, which I highly recommend, you want to think about how much time am I going to need to actually vet people for this program. The other reason why you want to think about the enrollment process is maybe you actually do need to vet people before they enter a mastermind you're running or an intimate membership you're running. You want to make sure that they're in the right place, that they're at the right time of their life or business or etc. You might have some criteria that you need to address with every single prospect before you allow them to join the program. Again, you want to really think about what do you need to know about the client, if anything. Sometimes you don't, and price point will help you determine this as well as what is the kind of learning or development space you're cultivating. Is it intimate, or are there hundreds of people in the room and there's less intimacy? These all factor into how you design your enrollment process, and then that enrollment process will impact the duration of your launch. The other piece about enrollment is to consider how are you designing the payment option process. So what I recommend, if it feels whole and clean to you, is to offer at least two options. One is a pay in full option where maybe you offer a discount if they decide to pay in full upfront before the program starts. Maybe it's 10% off if they join at pay in full. You can also add on an extra feature to honor the people who do pay in full. And you can also offer a payment plan. So maybe you do 3 monthly payments of X, Y, and Z to allow people to have more ready access to the program. So you offer both of these options that can create more accessibility for your program. And you can also introduce the payment process later down the launch. So maybe you don't come out the door with the payment process, but rather you see how enrollment goes with the pay in full. And then maybe you open up the payment plan to those who are on the fence or still considering joining or who reach out and need it, etc. So that's just an option. You can also just come out the door with like pay in full and a payment plan and just have that right there for people to choose up front, or you can introduce payment plan later. It's up to you. Okay. Let's take a moment here to pause and just reflecting on what is landing, what's resonating, what are some new insights emerging as this information flows through. So now we'll dive into holistic launch tips. And we're moving a bit beyond the marketing strategies and the business specifics into some of these other elements that will impact your capacity to deliver and implement those strategies. So I want to make sure that you don't just know the strategies, but that you also are equipped to really execute and gain momentum and launch your program without burdens or interference. We want equanimity. Equanimity is this quality of attention that allows us to have a non interference with what is happening. So, the what is happening might just be the launch itself. You're launching and you're following the strategy. And what might try to interfere with it are thoughts, emotions, different sensory experiences might arise and pass along the way. And so, we want to be equipped to navigate that when they do. So, the first one is at a high level, I invite you to attune and cultivate. Attune meaning compassionately and mindfully face whatever inner blocks are coming up or whatever, we could call them sensory experiences, whatever sensory experiences are coming up for you before and during your launch, that you just apply that compassion, you apply mindfulness to it, and you lean on proactively the resources that you assemble around you, the rituals that you have in place, the other resources like your marketing strategy that you have in place. You really allow yourself to be surrounded by these resources and attune. Just recognize, like, oh, I'm feeling this way. Rather than pushing it away, it's like oh, I'm curious about this. I'm feeling this in my chest and I'm allowing myself to feel it. And I'm also creating some of this distance using mindfulness, equanimity. I'm allowing it to ride its course and I'm not trying to resist against it. And then cultivate is equally important. And what I mean by cultivate is that you get to create resilience. You get to nurture that forward within yourself. You get to create inner resources to help propel you forward. This is the power of mindfulness, is when you know yourself well enough, when you know the parts that try to protect you, that come up when you are facing a growth edge. Something unfamiliar is here, like a launch is wildly unfamiliar and wildly unknown. So it naturally might activate any of these protective parts that are afraid of getting hurt, afraid of rejection or failure. And so we want to be efforting at the same time to cultivate our resources, to anchor into our sense of purpose, our sense of service that we're trying to provide, our sense of impact. What's the real impact we're really here to make? Taking time to reflect on it, taking time to sit with it, taking time to notice the gratitude coming up toward our clients and to the people we're already serving. These are all resources that can come in. So we want to cultivate and we want to attune every step of the way as needed. And another philosophy I have about program launches and really marketing in general is you get to fall in love with your mission and simply make that love affair public. That's all a launch is. And this is a really beautiful, soft way to see launching, because we can get really overwhelmed by all the mechanics of a launch and all the expectations. And maybe we see other people doing it a certain way. We can let all of that go and invite in this inquiry. How can I tap into this love I already have for this program? You get to love this program. And part of loving that program and really believing in it is communicating about it effectively to the people who really want to hear about it. That is power. That is empowered. And that is heart opening. And so, whenever the systems and the strategies and the expectations and the fears become too overwhelming, I invite you to direct your attention to this. It's as simple as opening your heart to what really matters and really loving your program and recognizing that your marketing is actually helping you share that love with other people and honor the program itself, honor what it's here to do. And it's when you think about it this way, it's not so honoring to just post about a program twice and then hope that people are going to find their way into it. When we really love that program, we're going to tell the story about its impact. We're going to tell the story about our clients who've really benefited from it. We're going to tell the story about all the different elements that we've infused in that program offer and why they're so impactful. That's what I mean by really embodying this love affair, is bringing that congruence of that vision into your actual marketing and communication strategy. And then take refuge in your strategy. So, this is really important because your strategy is here to help you root and to help you anchor. And it can represent a lot of effective, proven elements in the industry space that other people are really using to make a huge impact and to run successful launches. And so everything I'm sharing with you is being done in the marketplace and has historically gotten people really impactful results. And so when you assemble those elements together, you get to trust in that. You get to trust, I'm not the only one walking this path. Other people have walked this path. It's not even personal. This is a strategy. And the personal element is I get to infuse myself authentically into that strategy. But ultimately, I get to take refuge in this. When doubt comes up, I get to trust, wait, I have about 15 more days left on this launch. And so all I need to do is follow the launch strategy and learn as I go. Learn at the end. How did it all go? If you divert or turn away from the launch early because maybe anxiety comes up, maybe you're trying to emotionally regulate something or you feel defeated, maybe 15 days in on a 30-day launch, you're not giving the launch strategy the actual opportunity to show itself to you. This is so much about data. We need to learn about these strategies by doing them to integrity. And so maybe the launch doesn't work for you, but you want to find that out by actually doing it completely. And then you can learn and pivot and iterate. And so that's something that's really important is when in doubt, take refuge in the thing that you set up, which means you do need to set up a strategy. And I highly recommend that. I've done launches where I'm kind of in the dark or I see other people kind of just follow their intuition and not really put down some foundation of understanding what the strategy entails. And all that ends up doing is it creates confusion and actually a lot of mental clutter because now you're trying to figure out what the next step is every single step. And that takes up a lot of energy. And that actually can feel really defeating. It's nice to be spontaneous, but I'm telling you, you can be spontaneous inside of a strategy. So let yourself be held by a strategy. Some launch mindset qualities I highly recommend are gratitude, remember your purpose, courage and curiosity. Both of those are exceptional during a launch. You need to be courageous to send those emails or to talk about a program or to put yourself out there in this way. And being open, being curious. I wonder how this all will turn out. Curiosity is going to be the greatest gift you have in the face of uncertainty and unknowns. And a launch is highly uncertain and highly unknown. So we want to nurture these qualities forward in our mind and to learn along the way, to integrate and iterate, and to take this vision off the cushion. And so we want to put this out there essentially. And these are all some elements that can really help you stay the course. And lastly, trusting the path. So expansion and contraction, generosity and receiving, um, these are elements of, I would say, receivership. And receiving is is something we ultimately really want to provide ourselves the capacity to do on a launch. And so part of receiving is being generous, being open, sharing value with people, sharing what your program offers, sharing about different pain points. There's this opening up. And there's also this contraction that might happen too. You might notice like fear comes up, or you might notice like after a launch, you might go into a contractive state where you need to really close your eyes or I guess hush down in terms of like what you're sharing on social media. You might need to pause with yourself. So just trusting that these rhythms are here and very natural. They're just part of being human and also being someone who is launching something big and then coming down from it. So I invite you to notice that rhythm of expansion and contraction that might happen during or after your launch. And that's okay. That's totally okay. That's why we have our energy management systems in place to support us is we know it's a big expansion to share about a program. So we want to create the space to come down from that and to be kind to ourselves and to be compassionate, to give ourselves what we need after a launch. especially if you are delivering a program right after you launch. This is something to think about and really plan for is how do you manage your energy after a big expansion and having some things laid out. Maybe you have a day or two off after a launch where you get to just meditate or take time off of your screens. Something like that might need to be in place for you to recalibrate. And so receivership is really about this opening to the unknowns and this generosity, being in a generous spirit and being in that gratitude. That is what's really key here is remembering who you already serve, remembering who you've already supported, remembering what the impact you've had on them is. And really, there's this quality of remembering maybe things from the past that are resourceful and also feeling grateful for who's coming in. Start to imagine people coming in to your program. It might be current clients, it might be past clients, but just putting some faces to this process of generosity and gratitude. And really imagine yourself giving of yourself and trusting that it's safe to give. And so we'll look at what receivership is now and some of the components of it, but I've kind of described and distilled some of it right here. It's about accepting something offered. It's relational energy. So it's not just you putting something out there. During a launch, you are in this relational quality. You are talking to people, you are calling people in. So I want to bring some recognition to that, that you are actually interacting with a lot of people, some of whom you actually have no idea who you're interacting with. That's the mystery side. But we want to know I am being relational right now in my launch. And there's a reciprocity. You're giving and then there's a receiving. So we don't just receive without giving. And so I want to bring that in because that's where the generosity comes in. We want to give and express and be authentic and put ourselves out there. Takes courage. It is risky, but we get to trust in that receiving. And we don't know how exactly that will unfold, but we get to trust in that exchange, that reciprocity. And lastly is the harvest. It's like after you do that, after you put out all of this resource and put yourself out there in this way that's really honoring the integrity of your program and the love that you have for the mission that you're on, there's this gleaning of what you are now ready to harvest. And this is the great mystery. We don't know how it'll all turn out, but we get to trust that this is part of strong receivership is knowing that there will be something to harvest and we get to be open to what that might be. And so some of the core qualities of receivership that these are so important for a launch. The first one is being secure and sturdy. So we cultivate that. That's something that we want to make sure that we feel secure and sturdy and put together those components that help us do it, whether it's our marketing strategy or our mindfulness practice, which I'll share an example of one today that can be really helpful on a launch. But we get to cultivate this. We're not going to wait for this to just arise in us. This is something that we get to establish the foundation within us. And it takes some mindset work, mindfulness, emotional regulation, and getting those strategies in place. Generosity and gratitude is a core component of receivership. And we've talked about why. Just that energy, that focal point is magnetic. You know, it's not magnetic is being anxious and overwhelmed on a launch and feeling like you're pulling people in. We do not want to pull people in. We want to call people in and open our arms, open our heart to people and say, if this feels aligned for you, if we are on the same page about this beautiful thing that I'm ready to offer, then you are welcome in. That's a very different energy. And that energy is cultivated by these two words generosity, just giving freely, giving openly. That's part of content marketing. That's part of this launch strategy. Offering live workshops, bringing your full energy. And then the gratitude, being grateful for everything that's already here, being grateful for what is to come, being grateful to the mystery and all it's teaching you, anchoring into all these elements of gratitude because you're establishing a mind state by anchoring into these two words. And that mind state is magnetic. That's what invites people in. That's what people will feel from you. They will also feel the anxiety. They will feel your stress. They will feel your self-doubt. And so it's a tall order when you think about it. We have so much to manage, not just the content and the technical side of a launch, but also our energy. How do we hold ourselves? How do we hold the message? People feel that. This is relational. And number 3 is equanimity with the unknown. This one is really paramount. This is a part of any program launch, and this is also part of any entrepreneurial effort. At a very high scale, this is part of our lived experience. And we can go through life thinking and seeking certainties, and we do. It's a human impulse. We want things to be certain. We do things that help us feel certain about the world, but we do it really because we are navigating and living in this great unknown. And so equanimity is one of our best friends. It's something that we can cultivate with mindfulness. It's one of the 3 attentional skills of mindfulness: concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity. This non-interfering quality of attention that we bring to whatever the unknown is. And so this is something top of mind. This is part of opening up to receivership, is being okay with the mystery. We get to be okay with the mystery. And when we're not okay with the mystery, we get to emotionally regulate the part of us that's not okay with the mystery, and rinse and repeat. And if we have a mindfulness practice, if you do formal practice or any kind of mindfulness, you can trust that you're actually cultivating this skill, this attentional skill. You'll notice that skill come in when you're running your program launch or when you're delivering the program for the first time. There's a lot of unknowns that we get to dance with. The dance becomes easier when we have equanimity. And number 4 is to be the beacon. And what I mean by that is to be the lighthouse that guides people toward the solutions. And this just means that you are taking the time to believe in your program, to reflect on its impact, to reflect on the impact you've already had on other people. This is all part of being the beacon, and just trusting that you get to be the lighthouse that attracts people. You do not need to seek people out or grab them or force people in. That energy is ineffective in terms of enrollment. People are not moved by that. And frankly, you don't want to drag people into something. You want people to be there because they want to, and they found you at the right time, and there's this willingness and this desire to partner with you. That energy is expansive. That energy is heart opening. That energy is mutual and reciprocal. And so by being the beacon, this is an energetic stance you get to take in your own process. And so those are the qualities I'd love to now bring us through practice in. And we'll take a few moments here to practice some mindfulness and to just explore what it can look like to support yourself on that launch journey, but in your business at large. So I welcome you to stretch up, settling into your meditative posture, supporting a wakeful, bright attention. Pushing the crown of the head all the way to the sky, relaxing the brow, the eyes, the cheeks, letting the neck and shoulders rest down and back. Noticing the in and out breath, expanding and contracting. tuning into that flow, this quality of rhythm, movement, impermanence, feeling the arms hanging heavy, hands resting, noticing the belly relax, hips settling down, noticing yourself supported by the surface or the chair, feeling the thighs, the knees, the shins, ankles, and the feet. And take a moment here to really sense the physical body held and supported. The attention bright, also sensing the tranquility. Noticing the space around the body, sensing outward into this vast spaciousness. You may notice a vast sky comes into the mental screen, resting in this vast, spacious sky. Thoughts and sense experiences arise and pass in this sky. Weather patterns that come and go. There's this evergreen quality, this openness, this emptiness of the sky that really holds everything. And the sun is beaming into the sky, beaming qualities of compassion, kindness, curiosity. The space is filled with these qualities. Just noticing how that washes over the senses. There's a courage that permeates this entire sky. Notice if any parts are rising internally that feel contractive, if any emotions are here. and letting them be held in this greater, vast sky, held by the compassion, curiosity, kindness, courage. Notice what's changing in the body, if any sensations are expanding or dissolving, neutralizing. Noticing this receiving of the energy in this vast sky. These qualities permeate every cell. There's this blanket. Good. Now I invite you to gently drop these visuals, noticing yourself grounded, cultivating a quality of being grounded. And bring to mind the people you support, noticing them sitting before you. There might be one person or a few clients, and just really recognize the connection you already have with them. Noticing that gratitude for them arising, expressing it to them. Gratitude for showing up, for trying, for being open to a new way. And notice the gratitude is coming back to you for being their steward, for helping them along this path, for holding the space. And as they send that to you and express how their lives have changed, notice yourself really opening, turning up the curiosity to receive this. Notice that purpose is very much alive in this exchange. Your core purpose, noticing what that is and how it's really embodied in the way they now hold themselves, in the transformation they've gone through. Notice how that arises in your physical body. Can you sense gratitude, connection, alignment, excitement, any other sense experiences, particularly resourceful, noticing these and placing your attention on the body, noticing where does that show up. Developing sensory clarity, really knowing that sensation. Is it undulating? Is there a warmth or vibratory flow? Really paying attention to the contours in the body as the scene unfolds. Letting those inner resources be nurtured forward simply by applying concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity to it. Noticing the way your clients, past, present, future, help you contact that sense of purpose, that sense of connection. Taking this one step further, I invite you to imagine this vision you hold. What does this launch help you embody? What does this launch pave the way for in your life? There's no right answer, just intuitively noticing what arises. What are your values? What are these root motivations to have a great launch? And seeing it all unfold as if it's already here. Releasing any need to figure out how you got there, simply allowing the vision to unfold, to be vivid, to take up space on your mental screen, in your body. As you notice this vision arising, notice what is arising in the body. Is there relief to know that you've achieved these things? Sense of connection, excitement, congruence. You may notice challenging emotions arise as well. And this is completely normal. If they are here, simply allow them to sit alongside the resourceful emotions. Perhaps they can all occupy this great field held in this compassionate, curious field of awareness, letting that vision grow stronger, letting yourself feel moved, moved by it, excited, hopeful. Okay, good. So I invite you now to take one last moment to soak into this vision, to feel it fully across the whole body. When you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes, returning back to this space, carrying the momentum of your practice with you throughout the rest of your day. Mm. So thank you. Thank you for practicing that with me. I'm excited to hear how that went and to dive into some questions, some reports now. We can dive into specificity. And before we do, I'll just share what's coming up at the Mindful Nest in case you are curious and interested in going deeper and getting some support with your launch or anywhere in your business. So I'll just share my screen for a moment. We have two things coming up. One is I have a True North coaching pack right now that's available, 5 sessions for $1,700. And it basically helps you save $400, which is the cost of one of my coaching sessions. So you essentially get one for free. And you can use this flexibly within 8 months. So this is different from my private coaching tracks where I usually meet with people twice a month for 4 or 6 months. And that has a different level of support and accountability. This is more to kind of assemble your own track over 8 months and get support as needed, but with less frequency. So if this feels meaningful, please let me know and ask any questions you have. And then the other thing I do have now is called the Root System, which is a self-paced online course. It's a comprehensive bundle of 5 different elements of marketing trainings and strategies to support you with setting up all your marketing foundation in your business, to marketing strategies, launch strategies, enrollment, to B2B strategies and energetics, project management, how to run your whole business and all the different elements across marketing, mindset, mindfulness, and energy. And so that's usually 1997, and the masterclass rate is 997. So that's over 20 modules and trainings, and a really great resource to take you on your journey. And it comes with templates and blueprints. So it's video trainings plus there's different templates in there to help you take those strategies off the ground with ease. So that's what I've got right now. Thanks for your time, energy, and openness today. I really appreciate it. And